The Royal Commission on the Christchurch shooting, that would be an 800-page report into the March 2019 killing of 51 Muslims at worshippers at two mosques in the city of Christchurch. Now, that Royal Commission has now been released. It has been compiling this entire time, investigating many people, interviewing many people, and collecting as much data as possible. So it's not like this was a hidden report. It just simply had not been finished yet because of the sheer amount of volume of work that had to be put into it. Now, the conclusions of the Royal Commission are actually very stark and speak very much to the nature of not only New Zealand society, but of generally of Western countries. They found that while intelligence services had directed their efforts away from right-wing groups and towards focused very heavily on threat of Islamic extremist activity, they could not have been alerted of the imminent attack. In other words, they didn't see it coming because they had directed resources away from monitoring right-wing extremism to go after Islamic extremism. In other words, this could be very highly interpreted as being their own fault for trying to focus on the wrong target. This is not to say that there is no such thing as Islamic extremist attacks. When you place a disproportional amount of attention to a smaller problem, the larger problem goes unchecked, as we witnessed it happen. Now, Christchurch authorities are for deploying an inappropriate concentration of resources on other terrorism threats in the country. In other words, they admit they focused on the wrong problem. Now, it's very interesting that some of the personal details of the shooter himself, which I won't name because I believe in what the New Zealand government was saying, and that try not to make him famous or legendary by using his name, which was something that he specifically said that he was looking for in his manifesto. Now, more than a year before the attack, the attacker was found to have shown the hallmarks of steroid overuse. In other words, he was juicing for either to gain strength or to try to look better. But frankly, as someone who has seen him in court, he's really not very fit at all. And the study also showed that he had shown no interest in giving up the use of testosterone. Well, either the man was or believed he had a low testosterone count and thus, as a result, used some kind of supplements. They don't specify whether they were legal or illegal in order to boost up his T count. So, in other words, either his T count was low or he believed it to be too low. The study doesn't actually specify this case. Now, there were warning signs before that they had missed. However, they feel that these warning signs were not enough to warrant actually taking action against the shooter. He had been practicing with a large cache of firearms, and during that time, he had actually injured himself when one of the firearms had jammed. He went to a hospital in Dunedin, but the hospital officials failed to alert the police about it. That is a policy. If there is an injury with regards to firearms, the police are alerted. However, they didn't do their job in this case and tell the police about it. In other words, given all of the content of this report, not all of which is talked about in this video because it's simply too long. It's an 800-page report. If you do go to the link in the description, you can read the report for yourself, or at least get a hold of you can get a link to the news article, which does give actually more information, and I assume there's a copy of that out there somewhere for the public to read. This definitely does show that there is, at least in my opinion, an amount of negligence on the part of the New Zealand government. They acknowledged that they focused on the wrong threat, something they knew to be a smaller threat than another one that they were facing. In other words, they knew that they were looking in the wrong direction and focusing on the wrong threat. That, it appears, has caused the deaths of 51 innocent people inside of New Zealand, and has caused a very large backlash against legal, safe ownership of firearms in the country, which should be the right of every working class person. So this man, far from having cleaned up against some kind of Islamic threat, has actually hindered the ability of the working class in New Zealand to lawfully and rightfully own firearms, because as we saw after this incident, it became a very large target by the New Zealand government and the New Zealand people, who do have lawful right to own firearms and do so in a safe and responsible manner, can thank this man for that loss of freedom. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.